This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and LifeLock has tips to protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report phishing, and update the software on your devices. And for comprehensive identity protection, let LifeLock alert you to suspicious uses of your personal information. LifeLock also fixes identity theft, guaranteed or your money back. Stay smart, safe, and protected with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Breaking news.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, some interesting numbers coming from the New York City mayoral race. And many people coming out and saying in the last 48 hours that the field absolutely needs to be narrowed because Zohran Mamdani is a clear and present danger to New York. So let's talk about some of the new numbers tonight, and let's realistically talk about where this race needs to go from here. The more we keep hearing about Zohran Mamdani and some of his ties that many people believe seem sympathetic to terrorists, my opinion, he is deeply, deeply dangerous. And if you see the fact, this new details that he's been very chummy, it looks like, with this imam who was essentially praising one of the World Trade Center 1993 attackers. So you've got that. You've got him hanging around with social media folks who said that America brought 9/11 on themselves. You've got his defund the police policies. You've got his absolutely anti-Israel policies. And you put that combination together, this is a guy who is saying the protesters should keep on going, that it's First Amendment rights. And essentially, even when he was asked in the debate last week, and there is going to be another one this week, but there could not be more on the line, because even in the debate where he was asked, will you keep protesting? Because he was at two pro-Palestinian protests. One of them, kneeling in Grand Central Station, and then another one blocking traffic. And when he was asked in the debate last week, will you essentially stop protesting? His answer was, no, I'm going to lead from the mayor's office. And will you stop protesting? The moderator asked. Like, in other words, you're going to drop your protest behavior. You're going to be the mayor if you were to be elected. And his answer was, I'm going to lead from the mayor's office. In other words, what, is he going to be leading the protests from the mayor's office? I almost wouldn't put anything past this guy. The more details we hear, the more troubling it is. And clearly, his message is, I will fight Trump truth, every different direction, tooth and nail. I will fight him on every level. I will not acquiesce. I will not let the NYPD cooperate with ICE. No matter who the individual is, I'll push for protesters. I'll essentially tell the police, I'm going to send a social worker instead on a domestic violence call that could turn extremely violent. This is really dangerous behavior for New York City, and it's dangerous behavior well beyond New York City, because he has already essentially said, this is going well beyond the Big Apple. He is saying that this should be part of a national movement. And sadly, he's not alone, because if you look at the behavior, he's also got the support of Bernie Sanders. He's got the support of AOC. Both of them are going to be doing a big rally for him in Queens. And so you put all of this together. This is an extremely perilous moment for not just New York, but America. Because if this guy succeeds, sadly, a lot of people behind him are going to say, wow, that looks like it worked really well. Let's do the same thing. And I'm telling you right now, AOC is going to run for president. If Zohran Mamdani becomes mayor, AOC is going to run for president. And we may not just lose New York City. We may lose a good bit of this country. I'm telling you, this is a very scary situation. This is not just an extreme guy with some comments. This is a dangerous individual whose policies will absolutely, I believe, destroy the Big Apple. And sadly, some of these new poll numbers, and it breaks my heart, are not good for Curtis Sliwa, and they're not good for New York. If you look at the numbers, it tells a pretty clear picture that the only way that Mamdani will be beaten if it is a two-person race. And obviously, you got to go with the person who is closest to him and the number 2 slot. And you know what? The bottom line is it has to be a one-on-one race. That is the bottom line. So here is David Schwartz. He is with Gotham Polling. And here is some of the information that he got from his latest polls, which paint a pretty obvious picture. Take a listen.
First of all, Gotham Polling is a separate independent company. We're not for or against any particular candidate. So these are all fresh numbers that came in. If in a three-way race, there's no surprises. Mamdani has 43.2% of the vote. Cuomo has 28.9% of the vote. Sliwa has 19.4% of the vote, which is pretty much in line with what you've been hearing. So there's no real surprises there. But what we did at Gotham Polling is we did the one-on-ones, okay, because we know that was going to be the hot topic a few weeks out of the race. And if Cuomo dropped out of the race, that's scenario number 1 that we did, that Cuomo drops out of the race. So here's Mamdani versus Sliwa. In that one-on-one, Mamdani gets 46.8% of the vote. Sliwa gets 31.5% of the vote. Then in scenario 2, it's Sliwa that drops out of the race. So it's Mamdani versus Cuomo. And in that one, Mamdani has 44.6% of the vote. Cuomo has 40.7% of the vote. That's a 3.9% difference.
That's a big difference. And if you look at it again, let me tell you again what the numbers are according to David Schwartz of Gotham Polling. And again, there's different polls out there, but they're all painting pretty much the same picture. If it were Mamdani and Sliwa, 46.8, so essentially 47% versus 31%. And if it was Mamdani versus Cuomo, 44% to 41%. So the numbers are telling a pretty interesting picture. And there is a final debate, which is going to be on Wednesday of this week. And then early voting starts on Saturday. We have never seen such an extreme, ideological, radical, I don't think, in modern times. And this person is about to be on the verge right now based on the polls. I haven't seen a single poll that doesn't put him handily in the front. So the key is how to stop Zohran Mamdani at the polls. Here's a little bit more from David Schwartz.
Obviously, according to our poll, we polled 1,040 people, New York City, likely voters. In fact, these are people that said they were definitely voting. And certainly Sliwa being down by 15 points, I would say it would be very unlikely he could win a one-on-one race, as opposed to Cuomo, who's down by 3.9%, who is well within the margin of error in our poll.
And so John Catsimatidis, who has been a longtime friend of Curtis Sliwa, he's owner and operator of Red Apple Media, of course, the home base of the Rita Cosby Show on WABC Radio. And this is what John Catsimatidis had to say. He was on earlier on WABC with Sid and Friends in the Morning.
Look, I love Curtis. You know, me and Curtis, we work together a lot. I've supported him with the Guardian Angels for 40 years, along with a lot of other friends. And Curtis, you know something? This morning, you were 100% right. Curtis would probably make the best of all the candidates to be mayor of New York. He knows every subway station. He knows every neighborhood. But Curtis has to realize that he should love New York more than anything else. And it certainly looks like that Curtis should pull out right now. And you know something? He's only 70 years old. He's only 70. And, and look, Trump is 78, 79. Then he can win the next election because people will be proud of him that he did the right thing for New York City versus doing the wrong thing for New York City. And President Trump has spoken. Sid Rosenberg has spoken. John Catsimatidis has spoken. And a lot of the city has spoken that cares about the city. We cannot take a chance. We cannot take a chance on Zohran winning. And the fact is that every common sense New Yorker, I think, feels the same way. And I don't think there's any other way we could say it. But I think Curtis would be a hero if we beat Zohran, and he could win next time around on anything because he'll look like a hero.
Very powerful points from John Catsimatidis. And then he also talked about what Curtis did in the last debate, which many people feel was a lost opportunity.
Look, Curtis is a friend of mine for 40 years. Why is he attacking Cuomo? The enemy of this entire situation is Mamdani. That I think Curtis should have been attacking Mamdani because he is the, how do you say it? Clear and present danger. Cuomo, he's a Democrat, and the real Democrat in the thing is Cuomo. So if you have 70% Democrats in New York City, well, they should be voting for Cuomo versus voting for Mamdani.
Your thoughts of where the race needs to go. You just heard from John Catsimatidis, who owns the Red Apple Audio Networks and knows Curtis very well, but also knows polls. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Robert in Brooklyn on line 4. Go ahead, Robert.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Well, like you just pointed out, the numbers don't lie. The only chance to defeat Mamdani in the election is for Sliwa to drop out, and there is a chance Cuomo could win. Now, I want to point out Sliwa, people shouldn't be so enamored with Sliwa. When they ask the question, would you cooperate with ICE? Raise your hand. No one raised their hand, including Sliwa. Sliwa is a tremendous hatred Sliwa has for President Trump. So Sliwa, this idolization of Sliwa, when all he's doing is helping Mamdani to win, I got to ask how much of an anti-Semite Sliwa is. But the thing is like this.
Hang on 1 second. I'm not going to let you say, hold on, Robert, you got to chill out. I'm just telling you right now, I'm not going to say that he's an anti-Semite. That's a preposterous comment for you to say about Curtis. And it's hard to drop out. That's why, I've been hesitant to tell anybody to drop out. I'm saying it clearly needs to be a one-on-one. And if you look at the numbers, clearly it's in Cuomo's favor. And I agree with John that last debate was a lost opportunity for Curtis because he should have really gone after Mamdani. He's a great debater, Curtis to his credit, and he absolutely should have done that. And instead, he went after Cuomo, and so far he's saying he's not going anywhere. So, if you look at the end of the day, it's hard to decide to not follow what you want to do. But on the other hand, the risk is too great. This is not a normal election. If it was a normal election, you could say, okay, everybody just kind of go to the polls and see where it goes. The reality is very clear in this case that it's clear that somebody has to drop out because a 2-1 against Mamdani, he handily wins. Handily wins. You are handing the election over. So that's why something needs to change in the race. And I was actually hoping in the last debate there'd be some dramatic shakeup because the stakes were that high. And I assumed that both sides, all three people there understood that. I mean, Mamdani didn't need to worry about it. He just needed to sit back. I'm not saying I by any means agree with him. What I'm saying is that all he had to do was do no harm because he was sitting in such a high lead. But the other two guys, I thought Cuomo did better than expected. And I thought Curtis did less than expected. I expected a lot more of him. I think he's a very good debater and a very strong debater, and he should have taken Mamdani to task. I'd love to spend 5 minutes interviewing Mamdani and grilling him. And the sad thing is the moderators aren't doing, Curtis or Cuomo any help. I mean, they certainly weren't doing Cuomo any help because they were going after Cuomo. They were kind of treating Curtis as irrelevant, and that wasn't fair either. So they gave Mamdani a totally free pass. And I would expect, sadly, the same thing later this week. So, the clock is ticking, and it's already almost too late in the race. But better late than never. We're going to continue calls, everybody, after the break. 1-800-848-9222. What do you think needs to happen in the New York City mayor's race?
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
It is only about 2 weeks away till Election Day, and it's going to be biggie as we're talking about the New York City mayoral race. You've got the Virginia governor's race. You, of course, have the New Jersey governor's race. There is a lot at stake. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show. Let's go, if we can, let's go to Jay in New Jersey on line 5. Go ahead, Jay.
Hey, Rita. Thanks for taking my call. I called you the night of the debate, and I was so upset with Curtis that I wanted him to get out. But I've been listening to this issue, and I don't think so anymore. And I'll tell you why. You cannot be bailing the Democrats out of this. They elected a communist Muslim in their primary, and now they're telling the Republican to get out so they can elect the guy who's a little bit less bad than him. And if we're going to continue doing this, and every time there's a Democrat Party electing the people that they want to elect nowadays, and now Republicans will have to bail them out.
No, by the way, it's an interesting point. Jay, stick with me if you could. I have some thoughts on it. We're going to go to a hard break, but stay with us. We're going to go to break, and I'll take you right after Back the Blue, because I think you're making some interesting points, albeit I don't think they're right.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Rita Cosby is on. The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment coming from Warwick, Rhode Island, where police officers pulled a 71-year-old man from a submerged car in what the police chief called a very heroic rescue. Just after 7 o'clock, officers were dispatched and they received a report of a vehicle in the water. When they got there, police officers saw the vehicle about 100 feet from the shore with only its roof visible above the water. Witnesses told officers they'd seen a person in the driver's seat before the vehicle sank. So without hesitation, officers went into the water to try to rescue the driver. The water was dark and they could not see in the vehicle. After blindly searching the interior of the vehicle, They were able to find the sole occupant. The officers pulled the man out and they swam him to shore. Once they got here, then EMS was on the scene. They started life-saving measures and they rushed a man to the local hospital where he was in critical condition, but amazingly alive. Well, police chief from that area said he commends those officers for their bravery, quick thinking, and heroic actions in risking their own safety to save a life under very challenging conditions. He further said their actions and dedication to public safety exemplify the highest standards of service. And bravo to them. And of course, all of our men and women in blue. And I'm going to get to Jay in New Jersey in a moment and the rest of your calls, everybody. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. But first, here's a little more detail. Zohran Mamdani, this is his lead canvasser who kind of goes to the area, helps with the campaign. And he was talking sort of on a hidden camera video. Everybody's talking about this. He was asked, what do you think of the fact that police aren't really happy with Zohran? And his lead canvasser, again, it's not Mamdani, but it's one of his lead guys says, too bad. The police just need to shut up. Take a listen.
What did the police think about Zohran? Because I know that's like a little contentious.
Just what they think. You're a city employee. You get told what to do. Shut up. When did you get an opinion?
Whoa. When do you get an opinion? You're a city employee. Police officers, shut up under Zohran Mamdani. I'm not surprised. That seems to be the way Zohran Mamdani feels, if not even stronger. And here is Professor Alan Dershowitz. We talked with him earlier on Katz and Cosby, and boy, he is deeply concerned about Zohran Mamdani and his anti-Semitic views.
For me, the worst thing in the world is these damn, and you'll pardon me, damn, with a capital D, damn Jews and damn rabbis who are supporting Mamdani, and, they're self-hating, they're bigoted, they're among the worst people, and people forget that these same damn Jews supported Mussolini, and they supported Stalin. They were big supporters of Stalin, and then Stalin turned against them and started to murder Jews in the 1930s. So, these are self-hating people, and many of them are young. And remember, too, that young people brought us Hitler at the University of Munich and the University of Berlin. So, we're in a terrible time because if Mamdani wins, this is going to spread. First, it's going to do Minneapolis, then it's going to do Los Angeles, then it's going to do San Francisco. It's going to spread to all the Democratic big cities, particularly in the north. It's not going to spread to Texas, not going to spread to Florida. They're too sensible. But it's going to spread to a number of these other cities, and we're going to see a trend in the United States away from free market economy and away from civil liberties. Because remember, there's no one worse for civil liberties than socialists.
And President Trump also talked this weekend about some troubling new details of Mamdani and his ties to this individual who praised 9/11. And of course, let's not forget Mamdani's father also was telling us we should have sympathy for suicide bombers. And this man right now is ahead in the mayor's race in New York City after what happened to the Twin Towers. Take a listen. Here's President Trump, who is deeply concerned about the thought that socialist Mamdani could win New York.
Of Mamdani's photo with the 93 World Trade Center bombing.
It's a shame. Look, the Mamdani thing is it's a disaster waiting to happen. We can't have a communist in charge of a great, supposedly free enterprise, kind of a representative city. So I think if you have a communist mayor, I think it's going to be very tough for him and for the city.
Do you think he should have posted something like this so close to the election?
Oh, I think it's a shame that that particular man is endorsing him and very friendly with him. You can see there's a relationship. He blew up the World Trade Center, right?
And Mr. President,
didn't the man you're talking about blow up the World Trade Center? And he's friends with Mamdani?
Mr. President, sticking with New York City, you've talked about the Hudson River Tunnel.
Really troubling details. That's what's at stake. This is not a normal race. And here is again John Catsimatidis. He was on Fox News, and he has a message for Curtis Sliwa, who is trailing number 3 in the polls.
But like I said, the real Democrat in the function is Cuomo, and it's not Mamdani. Mamdani is a socialist, and people should realize that they're not voting for a Democrat. Just because he won the Democratic primary doesn't mean he's a Democrat. Socialism hit Venezuela. Me and Curtis were in Cuba. The people in Cuba are starving to death. The people in Venezuela are starving to death. The Mamdani is not the way to go for a city like New York City. Curtis, look, he's a Republican, and that's fine. But if Curtis loves New York, that if he doesn't see a path to winning by the next week or so, if he doesn't see a path to winning, then at that point you say, I love New York more than I love running, and give it up.
Even though you're great friends with him for 40 years, you would tell Curtis, give it up.
That's my advice to him as his friend.
Very powerful message. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. And let's go back to Jay in New Jersey on line 5. Jay, just so I understand you believe because the Democrats really obviously did have a lousy primary, this Mamdani guy came out of nowhere also. And I think, to your point, I don't think Cuomo ran by any means the best primary because he got clobbered by this guy, and that's why we have this guy. And you believe, okay, well, why should the Republicans have to bail the Democrats out? The problem is, am I correct in reading you first off, Jay?
Yeah, well, aside from the fact that he won the primary, the Democrat base is now an evil communist base, and they're going to continue electing people like this. It's not going to change after Mamdani, and I'm starting to think that maybe things have to really break before they can fix. And that hurts me terribly to say that.
I was going to say, that's the problem I have with what you were saying. And you hit it on the head, because I don't believe things should break before they get better, because the sad thing is they're not just going to break. I've heard people say, oh, well, you had Bill de Blasio and the city survived. Bill de Blasio was not a good mayor. There's no question. He had a lot of problems. There were a lot of issues. But Bill de Blasio, to me, and I've said this, he's like Clint Eastwood compared to this guy in terms of public safety. And the cops turned their backs on Bill de Blasio, as we know, at the funerals of the cops, and did not feel he had their back. This guy, not only does he not have their backs, he's throwing them under the bus. And that's what I have never seen anybody as extreme as this. And the problem I have, Jay, and people think, okay, things go in cycles. The scary thing is sometimes when damage is done, it's very hard to fix it. And if he wins, there will be other Democratic socialists just like him and other cities across this country, very, very extreme, to a very extreme degree. And he will start a really troubling trend that not only will be very hard to fix in New York, but it will be really hard to fix across the country. It'll be like a cancer spreading across this country. And the problem is, somebody who is mayor of New York, when you have a city council, as there is in New York, in some places there's maybe a little bit more of a backstop or a guardrail. There isn't in New York. That's the problem, just given the dynamics right now. You have a very radical city council that often fighted. They were often fighting with, with Eric Adams, because he didn't agree with them on certain things that were actually pro-police. He would try to do things that were pro-police, pro-community safety, and the city council was fighting him tooth and nail, absolutely tooth and nail. And same thing now, you got the state, also very liberal. And sadly, Kathy Hochul just endorsed Mamdani a few weeks ago. Mamdani has yet to endorse her, which is such a slap in the face to her. But the problem is she's going to be acquiescing to Mamdani because she already endorsed him. And she's got an election year, and she's going to worry about him, pulling people against her. So it's a really dangerous dynamic. Just looking at all the different pieces in a puzzle, it adds up to a very troubling puzzle. Also, the mayor can determine where money goes to nonprofits. And there's some pretty extreme nonprofits here that it can go to helping these groups that kind of block ICE, these groups that help support protesters, sometimes that get out of hand and go into stores and rob. I'm telling you, there are so many things that a mayor can do, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And then let's not forget, they can also play a role in appointing some of the judges. You can put these judges in there that say not only no cash bail, but let's not have prisons. He's already said about opening prisons. I mean, I never imagined in my lifetime there would be somebody running on such a radical, dangerous ticket. But he is telling New York what he is going to do, and he's repeating it over and over again in his little sly language during the debates. And yet he is still ahead because there are a lot of young people that hear free, 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 and they don't realize it's not free, free, free. It's radical, 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 and dangerous, dangerous, dangerous. And that's what's scary, Jay, is that you can do a lot of damage. It's different if it's a bad candidate and who's not really great. This is dangerous. This is a whole new breed. And I think you can't throw New York under the bus and say, okay, well, it'll get better. 4, 8, 10 years, maybe 20 years. Somebody can do a lot of damage. And who knows who comes after him, Jay. That's the problem. And if you can stop it, if somebody said, hey, here's a way to stop it by consolidating the anti-Mamdani vote, I hate to say it. I'm all for someone who's not a terrorist sympathizer. I never thought I would have to choose between someone I believe is a terrorist sympathizer and someone who's not. So I'm going to pick whoever is not a terrorist sympathizer. Your choice. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I hear you, Rita, and I understand that this election is, far beyond anything we ever could have imagined. However, Zohran Mamdani is a product of the system that the Democrats created. This is larger than him, and it's even larger than New York City. You're going to see, even if he loses this election, people like him are going to continue to rise up.
They are, but you might as well try to stop them. You might as well try to not allow them by sending a message that we are not accepting radicalism and someone who is embracing people tied to terrorism. That sure sends a better message than come on into Gracie Mansion, don't you think?
For sure. However, looking at things in a macro view, these things we have to have a larger discussion about the Democrats' current state, because they're going to continue to crank out the communists, and we cannot just look upon New York City as an isolated race and say that we have to do everything we can, including supporting murderers as an Andrew Cuomo. It hurts me terribly to see New York go down the tubes, but I don't even see if we save New York by electing Andrew Cuomo, I don't even see it saving New York in the long run. And
I disagree. I do, because I think whoever comes in, whoever it is, other than Mamdani, I think New York has a much, much better 1,000% chance, better of survival. Anybody but Mamdani. And I'm a big believer, I don't tell people who to vote for. I don't tell people who I vote for, by the way. But I will tell you the facts are clear that the field against Mamdani needs to consolidate. There is no question. And if not, it will be far beyond anything we've seen in our lifetime. And, you could sit there and say, okay, well, we'll just ignore this one. We'll just ignore. Yeah, it's the biggest city in the country. And it sure would send a very powerful message if it doesn't work this time. Because guess what? It worked with AOC. Let's not forget. AOC was running, and, she took out a very powerful Democrat in the primary because he didn't see her coming either, almost like this Mamdani. So, yeah, they will still keep coming, and you need to still stay vigilant to make sure you have people who are not radical. But Mamdani is so extreme, so radical, that you can't just give a pass on this one and say, okay, well, maybe the next go round will do better. You can do a lot of damage in 4 years that could be irreparable, and that's the fear, Jay. But great points, Jay. We're all doing a lot of soul searching, as will New York. And let's just pray that people come out to vote. That is the most important thing. Let's go to Dave, also in New Jersey, on line 4. Go ahead, Dave, your thoughts.
Hey, Rita. Thanks very much for taking my call. This has probably affected a lot of people, this mayoral race, where, we go back and forth thinking, you just can't see logic for Curtis to switch. But then as things have really come down to the bottom line, you learn these scary things. I just can't see how Curtis walks away, but it seems like there's a lot more danger that could happen. I had this crazy thought. Is there any way or anything that would give these two a path to make a deal where Curtis and him split the term? Could Cuomo get elected?
That can't happen. But you could have some sort of a team, like a deputy mayor. Curtis could be deputy mayor or New York City police commissioner. You could have something like that, or it could be like, one of the things that John Catsimatidis just talked about, and John's known Curtis for 40 years. He said, listen, Curtis is 70 years old. He got his name out there. People know him better. He got rid of some of the crazy comments a little bit, and he's been out there taken a little more seriously. And it tees him up for the next go round. He ran before, he can run again. But if Mamdani wins, and it may be too late to drop out too, though. Now that's the other issue. I'm not saying don't do it. I still think somebody needs to drop out. But it may be too late because people sort of have it in their mind, have it ingrained. You got a debate on Wednesday night. There's, the clock is ticking. In a matter of a short bit of time, it's 2 weeks till Election Day. So people are starting to make up their minds. And if you look at the other problem is on the ballot. You look at where things are on the ballot. Curtis's name is right next to Zohran Mamdani because he's the Republican Party nominee. The official parties go first. And then further down the line, you see Andrew Cuomo. So if it is Cuomo who stays in and not Curtis, you got to educate people. You got to do press conferences to say, here's the candidate, to really galvanize your voters to go somewhere else because people are still going to see your name on the ballot. The ballot doesn't change. So there are so many things tonight. Dave, thank you very much. 1-800-848-9222. Will Curtis Sliwa drop out or not? And should he? What do you think, guys?
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. This is the Rita Cosby Show. Breaking news.
And tonight, the New York Post with a stunning editorial saying, quote, swallow the bitter pill. Curtis Sliwa quit the race to stop Zohran Mamdani. Further saying, again, it burns to write this, but it's time for Curtis Sliwa to face reality and admit that the city's best hope to avoid the disaster of Zohran Mamdani mayoralty is for Curtis Sliwa to drop out of the race. It further says Curtis is absolutely right. It's not his fault that New York is in a corner, but fault is not the issue here. And again, in this stunning editorial from the editorial board of the New York Post, it says the simple fact is that the Republican nominee, Curtis Sliwa, is far back in third place in every poll with zero chance of winning. Also, one other thing, Zohran Mamdani today saying, I agree with Curtis Sliwa. He should stay in the race. Mamdani is pushing to have Curtis stay in the race, trying to bait him to stay in the race. Not that Curtis is saying he's not going anywhere right now. He's saying he's staying in the race. And Mamdani wants him to stay in because Mamdani knows if it is a 3-person race, Mamdani clearly wins.